My name's Greg.
And I'm Laura.
My trail name, though, is Billy Goat, the trail name that I had when I hiked the Appalachian Trail 3 years ago.
And my trail name is Chickadee. And that's the trail name that I got when I was hiking the last 2 weeks of the Appalachian Trail with Billy Goat, my dad.
And today we're going to tell you about a hike that we took in July of last year on the John Muir Trail. Let's first look at the John Muir Trail. If I can figure out how to work this. Here we go.
You got it, Dad.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so this is the John Muir Trail. As you can see, it's in the middle of California in the Sierras. You start in Yosemite Valley, you go through Tuolumne Meadows, you go over Donahue Pass, and that puts you into Ansel Adams Wilderness Area. You go to Devil's Postpile National Monument, John Muir National Wilderness. You go to Kings Canyon National Park. You go over any number of passes. You go over Sequoia National Park, and you end up on the top of Mount Whitney at roughly 15,000 feet. It took us, sweetie, yeah?
I was saying I was so excited to do this hike because we'd heard about this from so many fellow hikers that it's one of the most beautiful hikes in the world, and you just see so much wildlife. And, it's something I really wanted to do with my dad. So when we made it happen, I was so excited.
I was so excited to have you with me, Chickadee. So this took us 21 hiking days, and we also took 5 0 days that we didn't hike. And we zeroed at Mammoth with my wife, Nancy, Laura's mom, Nancy, our trail angel. We zeroed at the halfway point, which was Muir Ranch, not on this map. And we also zeroed over at Independence, also not on this map, for 2 days, for a total of 5 days. Now, this just shows which way we went. The more important thing is how high we went. You can see here the altitude of the John Muir Trail. There are 6 passes that are over 11,000 feet, and you end up at Mount Whitney, again, 14,000 feet, and it's the highest mountain in the continental United States. The whole trail there was 47,000 feet of elevation gain. And Laura, what got you, going up or going down?
I don't know. I think it was both.
Yeah, going down.
They both got you. I don't know. I feel like this is almost misleading, because you see it goes up and down, but man, those ups are super, super steep. And yeah, no, it was kind of intense, especially because we're both coming from, elevation 0. So, we're both coming from sea level.
Yeah, the low country in Boston, Hull, on sea levels. You're right. I think just because I'm old, the downhills killed my knees. So before we left, we had to do a lot of planning. First off, we had to enter a lottery to try to get passes, and that we got lots of denials, but eventually, thank goodness, we got in. Thanks in part because a lot of people had canceled because of the snow. We also had to think about things like food. And this is in our house, my house in Dataw, where we're sort of laying out a week's worth of supplies of food so that I could put them in a bucket along with some other stuff, including maps and wipes and bug spray and sunblock. And after we packed it, we brought it to the Frogmore post office and mailed it off from there. And we sent it off to the Muir Trail Ranch, which is roughly the halfway point. Now we're in a plane. We're flying out to meet Laura. Nancy and I are flying out to meet Laura in San Francisco. Those are the Sierra Mountains below. You can see a lot of snow. This was July, but there was still lots of snow left over from the winter before. So we flew into San Francisco, and there is Chickadee, our daughter, and there is Nancy, our trail angel. And boy, was she a trail angel, just like she was on the Appalachian Trail. She launched us. She met us for 2 of our sets of 0 days. She picked us up at the end. She was moral and logistical support the whole time.
And when Dad says that she picked us up, I mean, that's more than just picking us up in the car. That's, having to drive there to get us, which is already a pretty big hassle. But then we didn't exactly smell very nice when she picked us up. So then she had to deal with us in the car until we got to a shower.
Yeah, we smelled pretty bad, didn't we?
Yep.
So San Francisco, while we're still clean and showered, Laura hadn't visited it before, so we had to see some of the sights. Then we drove to Yosemite Valley. This looks like a painting, but this is a picture.
It doesn't look real.
Isn't it gorgeous? And what's that in the background in the middle there, Laura?
Half Dome.
That's Half Dome. Our very first day, we are going to hike from the valley up to Half Dome. So here we are, ready to go, heading on the John Muir Trail.
We look so clean.
Sorry?
We look so clean.
We look so clean, yeah. And look at my face. You're going to see whiskers added over time. You'll notice we both have hiking poles. These are good to get us up, get us down, and get us through streams. We'll be using them a lot. So as I set off, I thought of an important quote that Laura gave me, and it hangs on the back of my backpack, and it is from all people, Dr. Seuss. Today is your day. Your mountaintop is awaiting, so get on your way. And we got on our way, and we have 211 miles to go to get to the top of Mount Whitney. We're headed up. There's Nevada Falls. Lots of pretty flowers along the way. We had to step aside to let these mules pass us. They were hauling equipment for a trail crew. Now we've reached the base of Half Dome. Check out the walkway going up and down there. Laura, what do you remember about that walkway?
I remember that going up was kind of intense, but coming down was rather terrifying.
It was.
And I remember they recommended that you have gloves for your hands because that's just like braided wire, braided cord, right? That you're using to pull yourself up and lower yourself down. And if you fell, there was nothing to catch you other than the person behind you. So I'm glad Dad was there. But if Dad fell, he would have been in trouble.
So here we're on top of Half Dome, and you can see down below is Yosemite Valley from which we started. So we'd come up quite a ways. We're up 8,800 feet from 4,000 feet. Literally and figuratively, it took our breath away. And who's up there? A ground squirrel. We would see ground squirrels and marmots, which we'll see later, just about anywhere that there were hikers with food.
Well, that's one that I chased out of those other people's backpack.
Yeah, you're right. I remember that. It was about to get their food. This is day 2. We're now on top of Cloud's Rest, which is 9,900 feet. And that's Half Dome in the background. At this point, we had done when we got to our camp from here, we had gone 12 miles twice. And as you can see, we had gone up nearly 6,000 feet. We were tired, but we were exhilarated. Day 3, that's Cathedral Peak. You can see how it got its name. We're going to hike through these meadows here. And in these meadows, sharp-eyed Laura spotted a couple of coyotes who were playing, including a mother and a pup who were playing in the water. Here's Laura traversing our first snow. See how it's pink? That's actually algae that makes it pink.
And that snow is really slippery.
It is. Oh, by the way, I should point out, I think on Laura's back, can we see them? No, we can't. But there are her shoes, and I think also some crampons that we're carrying for later in the snow. We've arrived at Tuolumne Meadows, and hooray! Here is Trail Angel Nancy to pick us off. She took us to Mammoth Lakes for our first 0 day. I needed it so I could get through the altitude sickness I got. And Laura needed it because she badly needed some more warm clothing to borrow from mom and to buy from some outfitters.
It was really cold at night. During the day, it was comfortable to be in shorts and a t-shirt, but at night it got really cold.
It did. Okay, we're back on the trail, and as you can see, excited about it.
And it only took us about 30 tries to get that picture.
I remember. Now we're going down beautiful Lyle Canyon. There's Laura enjoying a little rest stop here. And this is where we had lunch. Whenever we set off from a 0 day, we always had slightly heavier things like apples and salami. And so we always enjoyed that first lunch. Now we've arrived at our campsite, and Laura, Chickadee is showing you one of our bear canisters that we had to put our supplies in and lock the top to keep the bears away. This was mine, Billy Goat, and you can see Laura has made a charming Billy Goat. So no bears ever tried to get in our bear barrels, canisters, but thank goodness we had them, because everywhere you stopped, there were ground squirrels or marmots, and this marmot would have been happy to eat our food. Day 6, Laura is showing where we're going. We're headed off towards Donahue Pass, which is next to that mountain with snow on it there. As we go, it's getting colder, and there's some icy water to cross. Let's watch Laura give this a try.
Here is Laura going up the Donahue Pass, crossing. Oh, Laura, maybe let's find a different way.
Okay, we ended up trying the same way, but I think a different log. Let's see how it goes this time.
Here's Laura trying again. That water is ice cold. Oh boy. Okay, Mom, look at this. We are unbuckling, and I'm ready to dive in and savor. Although I'll finish taking the video first. Okay, I better memorize this. I'm going to be doing this. Wow, look at this. So far, so good. Oh, good work, Laura. Yay! And up there's Donahue Pass, where we're going.
You'll notice that Laura unbuckled her backpack, because when you went through streams or rushing water, you always want to have it unbuckled so that if you fell in, your backpack would proceed down the stream without you connected to it.
Yeah, and we'd promised Mom, she was so worried about all these water crossings we were going to have to do. And so we'd promised her that we would unbuckle for every water crossing. So that was kind of our first big one. So I was proud of myself to remember to do it.
Now, the higher we go, the colder it gets and the more frozen the lakes. We're now trekking up Donahue Pass. That's Laura. She's wearing crampons. Those are metal cleats that you attach to your boots so you can make it up. And I tell you, you needed them, otherwise you'd slide. You also needed sunglasses because the glare was so bright. Later on, we met one little kid who had third-degree burns on his face just because he hadn't put any sunblock on his face going over these passes. Here we are at the top. We have made our first of 6 that are over 11,000 feet. So when we get up there, we actually had cell coverage, which we usually didn't have on our hike. And so Laura FaceTimed her husband Lance and her 3 small children, and I called Nancy, our trail angel. And then next, we're going to go down into that valley, which is Ansel Adams National Forest. That looks pretty easy, doesn't it, Laura?
Yeah, we didn't think it would be too bad. We thought we're almost done, but we weren't.
Yeah, here we're going down, and thank goodness Laura was navigating. First, you couldn't see the trail, which made it complicated. Fortunately, we had paper maps and an online map that helped us to sort of keep track of where it was. But more significant, underneath this ice were raging streams and practically rivers of melting snow. And if you stepped in the wrong place, you would end up in one. Again, Laura was a terrific navigator. The other thing that made it really hard are these snow cups. And you can see how wind and sun have formed these big bumps that made it really difficult to hike through. It was slow going. Okay, day 7, we're starting to see some of the beautiful mountain lakes that we're passing, from frozen lakes to beautiful unfrozen lakes. This is Thousand Island Lake with Mount Ritter in the background. From here on the John Muir Trail, like the next day of hiking, the John Muir Trail was in a valley. It was so covered with snow that we actually had to detour for a bit and stay higher up the valley. Otherwise, we probably couldn't have made it. The one advantage of detouring is we were on the sunny side of the valley up higher, and we saw lots of flowers. Look at these beautiful flowers. Okay, day 8, we're crossing a stream. This is a nice one where somebody put some logs there so we didn't have to get our feet wet. You know, in crossing streams, at first we did our best to keep our boots dry, but then after a while we gave up and we'd come to a stream and we would just hike through it. Fortunately, we brought lots of socks with us. Now we've come to Devil's Postpile National Monument, and there's Trail Angel Nancy, Laura's mom, who's there to greet us and take us off the trail for a day at Mammoth Lakes. Postpile was really cool. There are these, Laura, our daughter, teaches earth science in high school, amongst other things. And so she was fascinated by these columns of basalt left from lava, ages and ages ago, that all dried in these 6-sided columns. And here we're standing on top of them. After our 0 day, Nancy launched us from Red Meadows. As you can see, we still have 165 miles to go to get to Mount Whitney. There had been forest fires in this area a couple of years ago, which left a lot of burnt areas, but they were still beautiful in their own way. Here we've stopped for a snack, some good gorp that was put together by Trail Angel Nancy. You can see Laura right here is Laura's water bottle. She could use this to get water from a stream and then drink it through a filter, so we wouldn't get any diseases from it. Now we're at Lake Virginia. That again is our tent with Laura in it. She's in it with it zip closed, probably because she's laying out our sleeping gear, but also probably because we had mosquitoes there. This tent is a Z-Pax triplex. It held both of us plus gear, and it weighed all of 22 ounces. And then this is our chair. We each had one, and these chairs weighed all of 16 ounces. But I have to confess, at this point, I'd given my chair to Nancy because I wanted to save every pound. I was huffing and puffing up at these high altitudes. I sat on rocks.
I was pretty happy to sit in my chair. It was quite nice.
Okay, we got a stream crossing. Let's see if Laura can do it. I just want to say Laura crossed streams with much more grace than I did.
It was shortly after this, though, that we decided to start just walking through the streams.
I think you're right. Fortunately, we made it through that one. Now it's day 11. We're going up Silver Pass with our crampons on. There's a partly frozen lake behind the snow cups and a beautiful mountain in the background. This is exciting. We're getting on a pontoon boat to ferry us to Vermilion Valley Resort across the Vermilion Lake. And there we're going to stay overnight. Here's Laura checking in. We're going to have a huge dinner, steak, I think it was, wasn't it, Laura?
Yeah, it was really good.
And a huge breakfast. And sleep in a real live room, nothing fancy, but we were happy to dry out our gear and sleep in those beds, and most importantly, take a shower.
All of our stuff was sopping wet, so it was so nice to be able to hang it out.
It was. So we also restocked on food here. And speaking of food, what type of food did we eat on the trail? Well, here's the answer. We had a lot of dehydrated food, like this pepper steak and this lasagna. You'd rip open the top. You would have water that you had filtered from a stream, preferably, or a lake. You would heat it up in this titanium cook set with a little bit of kerosene, and you would pour the hot water in here, close it up, let it sit. How many minutes, Laura? Like 7 minutes? It always seemed like forever.
No, it felt forever. I know that I ate a couple of my meals vaguely raw and crunchy because I wasn't patient enough.
We were hungry, and so we would eat it. And then everything left over, you'd have to put back into your bear canister. By the way, sitting on top are our 2 long titanium spoons. We use those to eat everything. No forks, no knives, just these wonderful spoons. And again, it had to go in the bear canister because sure enough, there would be a marmot
These
looking
guys
for
were
it.
fearless. They'd come right up to you hoping for food. So you really had to be careful.
Which suggests to me that some campers must have fed them, you know,
Oh.
intentionally or not. So day 13, we've hit 100 miles out of the 211 miles to Mount Whitney. Another beautiful lake. Another snowy climb. Another beautiful pass with another beautiful lake beyond it. It just kept staying beautiful. Now we've reached the Muir Trail Ranch, which is roughly the halfway point. That is not Chickadee and me. Those are 2 hikers from the Pacific Crest Trail. They are going from Mexico to Canada, a lot further than we have. You can see a lot grubbier, a lot smellier, much bigger beers. They're stopping there to pick up resupply, just as we're picking up resupply. But we're doing them one better. We actually stayed there. We had a 0 day at Muir Trail Ranch, and we had real live food, hanging out with the other campers who were there, the other hikers who were there. We bathed in their wonderful natural hot springs.
So natural that a snake joined me in the water at one point.
Yeah, that was exciting.
Yeah.
There's Laura writing postcards to her 3 small children.
And my husband, he got
Yeah,
one.
but I think you also got some email time. They actually had internet there, so a little bit of email time with the husband, Lance. And I wrote a letter. We both wrote a letter to our trail angel, a letter of love and a letter of thanks. Okay, and by the way, Nancy at this point was back in Dataw because she'd flown back, but she's going to come back and see us later. Okay, here's where we're doing our trail crossings with our boots on.
So I remember this picture. Dad told me to pause so he could take a picture. Remember, this is ice water. So it was kind of like, take the picture fast, Dad.
What a good sport. You're smiling though. And your backpack is unpacked too. So Mom would have been proud of you. This is Evolution Creek. And we're going to show Laura crossing it here. I took a picture, but also took a video.
We are crossing Evolution Creek in Evolution Valley. Laura is in pretty deep. So, is it cold? I can't feel my ankles, frankly. Yeah, look at this. It's coming out. There's a sandbar in the middle. Yeah, but you may end up back down in again. There you go. Good work, Laura.
We would always face upstream going across streams. And if it was deep, if it was really deep and really moving, we would stand next to each other and hold each other to brace each other. Okay, now we're camping. We've entered Kings Canyon National Park. We're at McClure Meadows. That's Laura in the tent behind the screen. And that's me behind a personal screen over my head because the mosquitoes were so bad there. I think the mosquitoes really enjoyed beautiful places because that's where we seem to find them. And it was beautiful there. Day 16, we are headed towards Muir Pass. And we had just seen a ranger who warned us that the weather wasn't going to be particularly good in the afternoons, and we had to watch it for the next 5 or 6 days. And as you can see, it looks pretty ominous. We had actually planned to camp at a lake that was partway up there, but we got there and the lake was frozen, so we decided to just keep pushing forward. At this point, the clouds had cleared a little bit, and Laura is pointing out at the hut that we're going to at the very top of the pass. But as we headed up, the clouds moved back in, and there was thunder and there was lightning, and it got a little scary. Here we are at the hut where maybe we had stayed, but our guidebook said you don't want to stay in if there's lightning because there's no lightning rod. That didn't keep some hikers from the Pacific Crest Trail from holing up inside and playing some cards to stay out of the rain. We, on the other hand, launched back into the rain, into the hail with lightning around us and headed down the hill. How do you remember that hike, Laura? Laura, did I lose you? I think I've lost Laura. We're going to pause here and try to get her back. Okay, Laura, you're back. Tell us about going over Muir Pass.
It was pretty intense. We kept seeing just like clouds rolling in, and then all of a sudden there was blue sky, and then there was more clouds, and so we really didn't know what to expect, but we had our fingers crossed pretty tightly. And then we got hailed on, and then we got rained on. I remember running in crampons in snow with hail. It was an adventure.
It definitely was. And it was the second of the passes over 11,000 feet. So now we're about to hit a bunch of climbs, and it was definitely the scariest day on the trail. After Muir Pass, we were happy to set up our tent, and the next morning, that's Laura, making sure that the trenches we'd put in place to keep all the water out from it were still operating. They were. Now here's the next day. Like her mother, Laura likes breakfast in bed, so I would make her hot cocoa and oatmeal to have in the tent. That said, while in the tent, she would pack the bags and pack the pads, and it was a good sharing of labor.
I felt pretty spoiled, though, to be honest.
I'm glad. Okay, another difficult stream crossing. Let's watch this one. This was maybe our scariest. No, there was another scarier one I didn't video.
Well, this one was pretty scary, though. I remember being grumpy that you were filming me as opposed to holding a hand out to me.
This is actually a slightly dangerous crossing. One step at a time, keeping 3 points of contact, facing upriver. You're doing a good job, Laura. You're making it. Making it. And way in the background, that's Donahue Pass. We just came over lots of snow, ice, hail, lightning, pretty dramatic. Here we go. Good work, Laura. Give us a smile.
Correction, that was Muir Pass. And Laura, you're such a good sport to be smiling after I video you going across there. So this was a little less dangerous. This is the rock monster. This huge boulder with a big crack in it, probably caused by ice. Other hikers had put all these rocks in it as teeth. And so this is an iconic shot on the John Muir Trail. Now, the next day, we had learned our lesson. We'd been warned that there were going to be afternoon thunderstorms. And so when it got to around 4 o'clock and the weather started getting bad and the storm started rolling in, we just set up our tent, got inside, and read a book. I think at this point we were reading Pygmalion to each other and laughing like crazy people. After that, then, we got out and we decided we'd go further. We would go up the Golden Staircase. And the Golden Staircase was the last section of the John Muir Trail built, and it was dynamited into the rock in the 1930s. It was a 1,500-foot climb. Laura's showing how high we're going to climb. And there she is going up this dynamited trail. Look at that big smile on her face. I don't think I had a smile on my face. I hit the wall at this point. I think I stopped at every switchback, and I did something I had never done before hiking with Laura. I transferred weight to her. Thank you, Laura, for helping me get up there.
You're welcome. You did great.
Thank goodness we made it up to Palisades Lake, and there's the sunset afterwards. Is that beautiful?
This was one of my favorite camping spots. It was just gorgeous. It was unearthed, like otherworldly.
Okay, now we're going to climb up to Mather Pass. And this is, you probably get a guess, this is pretty slippery. Whoops, Laura fell down. Whoops, she fell down again.
You'll notice there are no pictures of Dad falling over. He didn't.
Yeah, I fell down, but somehow I never took a selfie while I was falling down. But you get up to the top there, and guess what? They're flowers growing out of the rock. Still a little ways to go. This is another one of these passes. You think you're there, and no, you're not there yet. Yay, we're now on Mather Pass. This is the third of the 6 passes that are over 11,000 feet. And behind Laura is where we're headed, another beautiful valley. Now, getting off this pass, since snow covered the trail there, wasn't easy. So here's Laura going down, and I couldn't help it. I'm sorry, Laura, I had to video this.
I am, in case you have another little wahaha moment.
Fortunately, she made it to the trail. She didn't go all the way down the pass.
Not over the edge. And I'm
Not
sure you
over
came
the edge.
much more gracefully, Dad.
Yep. So a waha moment. So day 19, we're crossing a nice bridge. Think of it. We didn't have to get our feet wet or brave a rushing river. We're now at Middle Ray Lake campsite. It was beautiful. So what does that mean? There were mosquitoes, and Laura's wearing her mosquito netting. The next day, day 20, we're heading off, and that's Middle Ray Lake in the morning. Is that beautiful? Let's have a little fun. Let's do a little bit of sledding here.
Sliding trip number 2 today. Backpack and all.
I remember doing those and ending up with the rock between my legs when I stopped. And it was like, oh, I'm glad I didn't go any further.
Yeah, it's more hazardous than it looks. I scraped myself up pretty badly doing that one time.
You did, poor baby. So now we're on Glen Pass, another one of the 6 passes, a whole bunch of lakes below. Now we have hiked 7 miles off the trail and over another pass, but it was worth it. We're meeting up with our trail angel, Nancy, Mom, and we had 2 0 days in the cute little town of Independence, where we stayed at a hotel where John Wayne used to stay to film Westerns in the area. That was fun.
It was pretty cool.
We also did things, I remember, Laura, like patched our air mattresses that were starting to get holes in them.
Gosh, we had so many holes.
So it's not fun to wake up in the middle of the night and have your air mattress deflated and you're laying on rocks. You can see there's not a lot of soft ground here. So day 23, we're back on the trail. We're all resupplied with new meals and maps and other essentials. Day 24, we're climbing Forester Pass. And we are at the top of Forester Pass, about to enter Sequoia National Park. Forester Pass is the last of the big passes, the last of the 6 over 11,000, and the next height is Mount Whitney. Even up there, there are beautiful flowers. Here at the higher elevation, there weren't trees, and we camped at this Bighorn Plateau. You can see there's another tent there too. There are some other campers there, an Air Force Reserve officer and his girlfriend. This was high enough that both of us woke up at night gasping for air. And in the morning, there were deer who walked around the lake. I think they must have done it every year. Or every night. It was beautiful. And Laura is now pointing out the mountain peaks into which we are headed towards Mount Whitney. Notice Laura wearing gaiters above her shoes. Lots of rocks there, lots of sand, lots of good reason to keep them out of your hiking boots. Okay, we are now heading up Mount Whitney. We started in the dark, well before dawn, because we wanted to get a head start on our hike up. And we had a long hike that day. We had a total of 15 miles to go, and we were going to see Trail Angel at the end. So we wanted to get started right away. Look at that beautiful sunrise.
Yeah, it was crazy. We went up and literally it was pitch black. I think we started hiking at like 3 a.m. We had headlights on, our little headlamps on, so we could see in front of us.
Yeah, it was cool. And then it lights up and we see this little tiny trail that we've been hiking on. It's probably good to hike it with more than just headlamps. It started getting colder, so we stopped and, you know, we got our jackets out and put all of our warm layers on until we came out. There's the top of Mount Whitney with an emergency shelter and some other people had hiked up there. And we made it. We're on top of Mount Whitney, 14,505 feet. Was that exciting? Were you excited, Laura?
I was very excited. It was kind of crazy. The views were spectacular.
So Laura phoned Lance and I phoned Nancy to share our excitement. It was great. But you know what? This is nominally the end of the 211-mile hike. And so you sort of feel like all your adrenaline's there. We're done. And I remember calling Nancy and saying, hey, I'm almost done. We're going to see you before long. But the hike continued and there were 12 endless miles down. It took forever, including 97, I said that right, 97 switchbacks on the way down.
I remember calling Mom and saying, yeah, we'll see you for lunch. And then we started looking more closely and realized, I think we were a little hopeful, a little off in our calculations.
Yeah, we were way off. Fortunately, Nancy was a good trail angel and just sort of hung out waiting for us. And then we finally saw her. She got a big thank you from me. So after the hike, I thought, oh, I should look at my iPhone because it has this health app and see what it says. And check this out. For the 1 month that we hiked less than a month, but for that month, that period of time, we climbed on average 100 floors. We got a lot of workout in, didn't we, Laura?
I know, we almost hit 400 on that first day, and you can clearly see where our 0 days were.
Yeah, the 0 days there.
Very little on our 0 days other than eat and sleep and shower and wash our clothes.
Yep. And the 100 floors, that was an average per day. So we got a lot of climbing in. The hike was absolutely spectacular. And I'm going to bring Laura and myself back in here because we have a couple of thank yous to offer.
Yeah, no, it was a really amazing trip. And it wouldn't have been possible without my mom, without Trail Angel, by supplying us and rescuing us and helping with all the logistics. I mean, mom had this pretty thoroughly planned out, and it wouldn't have been possible without her. So thank you, Mom. Thank you, Trail Angel. And my husband, he was a very good sport. He watched my 3 kids for a month while he was still working full time. So that was a pretty heroic effort on his part as well. So thank you, guys.
This was a spectacular hike. I mean, it was more beautiful than the Appalachian Trail. And probably harder in many ways, except that the White Mountains were comparable, but it was a hard hike. And I'm so thankful for John Muir and the others who protected this wilderness and who promoted this trail. I am also thankful to Trail Angel, who happens to be here, Nancy, who provided us such wonderful support there. And I'm thankful to Chickadee, my daughter, for being willing to hike with me, not only the last 2 weeks on the Appalachian Trail, but the whole 3 weeks of this hike. So thank you so much, Laura, for joining me.
Well, thank you, Dad. I mean, I wouldn't have been able to go do this on my own. It was a ton of fun getting to share it with you.
So let me end with a quote that says, in part, why I love hiking. And it's from John Muir, The Mountains of California. He wrote, "Climb the mountains and get their good tidings. Nature's peace will flow into you as sunshine flows into trees. The winds will blow their own freshness into you, and the storms their energy, while cares will drop away from you like the leaves of autumn." Thank you for joining Chickadee and myself.